Is Mexico an ally in this fight against illegal immigration?
Yes, it is. So,
I mean, it's hilarious and somewhat troubling that you say that, because like I'm looking at the El Chapo trial where President Nieto took a $100 million bribe from the Sinaloa cartel. Do you think that the subsequent presidents following Nieto weren't offered a bribe by the cartel or didn't take the bribe?
Congressman, I disagree with everything you have said.
Right, but you can disagree all you want, but what you won't provide is any number. And when you sit there and just kind of ostensibly disagree without any facts, it shows people what the real gig is. The Mexican government is captive to the cartels. They are doing the bidding of the cartels, and based on your response today, so are you. 2 million encounters and releases under your watch. So not including the Title 42 expulsions, not including violent criminals. Of those 2 million plus that you've encountered and released, how many have you told to go home?
Congressman, individuals who are released are placed in immigration enforcement proceedings under the law where they can make their claim for relief. If their claim for relief is not satisfied, they are subject to removal from the United States.
Right, subject to removal sounds very different than actually removed. So I'm not interested in the process. I'm not interested in what people are subject to. 2 million people encountered and released. Not the expulsions under Title 42, not the criminals. How many of those people have you deported?
So, Congressman, a few points. Number one.
Just how many of the people? I just want to know how many. It's just a number.
Congressman, we are dealing with a completely broken immigration system.
I get it. No, Mr. Secretary, I'm not going to let you burn my 5 minutes. Do you know the answer? Do you know the number of people out of that 2 million that you've removed that aren't criminals?
I do know that we have removed more aggravated felons.
Right, I'm not asking about them. I've caveated that away, because here's what I'm sort of getting and what your non-responsiveness is demonstrating. The Mayorkas doctrine is this. If you show up at the border and get released into the country, if you don't commit a specific aggravated felony, which, by the way, doesn't include a lot of assault and battery, doesn't include a lot of bad domestic violence, but if you're not one of the people who commit those crimes, you get to stay forever. Is that a fair characterization of your doctrine?
No, that is false.
Then tell me how many you're sending home.
No, that is false.
Okay, well, but you don't know the number of how many you've sent home. Here's another number. 1.2 million people today have been through your entire process. Right? They've been through what you call a removal proceeding is just an amnesty dance. Because after the 1.2 million people get an order from the judge saying that they don't have a basis to be here, you still don't remove them. Like, what's your plan to remove those people?
Congressman, that is false.
Okay, how many of them then? Just give me the number.
Congressman, in this country, there are between 11 and 12 million.
Right, but I'm asking about a subset that you won't send home. And the reason you're smirking about it and the reason you won't answer my question is because everybody gets the joke. And the sad thing is it's not just us here, it's the cartels who get the joke too. And so now what you've done to execute this Mayorkas doctrine where so long as you don't commit a crime, you get to stay here and burden our hospitals, burden our schools, burden our social services, burden our jails. You've sent the message to the cartels and then you've taken this app and you've digitized illegal immigration and you've scaled it to the moon. Like this app that you've got everybody downloading is like the Disney Fast Pass into the country, never to be subject to actual removal, just removal proceedings as you call them. That app doesn't do any search of their criminal history in their home country, does it?
Congressman, I disagree with everything you have said.
Well, I'm sure, but just to answer the question, does the app that you are out there promoting do any search of people's criminal history in their home country?
Congressman, Customs and Border Protection screens and vets individuals whom they encounter.
Your app, it either has the functionality to test their criminal history in their home country or it doesn't. By the way, if it did, you'd have already told me. It doesn't. And then the other epic failure of this that's empowered the cartels is that in these processing centers you've set up in other countries to just wave them all in at a rapid pace, you've had to shut them down in Nuevo Laredo because the cartels were standing outside extorting people. Isn't that right?
Congressman, that is false.
Oh, really? So why did you shut down that facility in Nuevo Laredo?
And the point of safe, orderly, and lawful pathways is to reduce the number of encounters at our southwest border. But
wait a second. You've just shifted those encounters because right now, for the first time in modern history, more people are showing up at the ports of entry than running through some Bush in Yuma, Arizona. And the reason they're showing up at the ports of entry is because you've got the turnstile open, where so long as they've gone and downloaded this app, you just let them in. I got one final question for you, and it's an important one. Is Mexico an ally in this fight against illegal immigration?
Yes, it is.
So, I mean, it's hilarious and somewhat troubling that you say that, because like I'm looking at the El Chapo trial where President Nieto took a $100 million bribe from the Sinaloa cartel. Do you think that the subsequent presidents following Nieto weren't offered a bribe by the cartel or didn't take the bribe?
Congressman, I disagree with everything you have said.
Right, but you can disagree all you want, but what you won't provide is any number. And when you sit there and just kind of ostensibly disagree without any facts, it shows people what the real gig is. The Mexican government is captive to the cartels. They are doing the bidding of the cartels, and based on your response today, so are you.
Mr. Secretary, you know what the number is, don't you? Number that Mr. Gaetz was trying to get a response from. You know what that number is, right?
Congressman, I would be pleased to provide this committee, you, Mr.
No,
Chairman.
You don't know now? You don't know what that is? I mean, again, just to read, because what Mr. Gaetz was trying to get at, I think what the country would like to know is, we know that there's been an influx of people coming in. Over 2 million encounters on our southern border, inadmissible aliens on our southern border. We know that number has come in since Joe Biden's been president. We know it's a big number. And all he was asking was, how many of that 2-point-something million, over 2 million, how many have went through the adjudication process and actually been removed?
Mr. Chairman.
And you're telling the Judiciary Committee today you don't know what that number is?
Mr. Chairman, what I am sharing with you is that we will provide you with whatever data you request.
No, that's not where I want to go right. But it's a simple. We've had kind of two simple questions that you didn't give an answer to, and I just want to know, give you a second chance here if you'll do it. What is that number? Out of that 2-point-something universe of inadmissible aliens encountered on our southern border who've come into the country, been released into the country, how many have went through the adjudication process and then been removed?
Mr. Chairman, I'd be pleased to provide you with that.
Can you guess?
Mr. Chairman, it is
Can you give an estimate?
Mr. Chairman, I will not.
Why will you not give an estimate to the American people? Because they would like to know, because that sort of frames it. Here's what's come in, here's who you've allowed in since Joe Biden's been president, and here's the ones who've actually been removed.
I would say two things, Mr. Chairman. Number one, I will provide that data to you. We will do so.
Well, you're not real good at that, because you've said that other times here, and you don't give us the data. I mean, we asked information about the Disinformation Governance Board, and all we get is redacted documents. So you're not real good about that. And it's a simple question, and frankly, a question we ask you to be prepared for. We wrote you 2 letters in the last several weeks to be prepared to answer that kind of question. I think probably that specific question, and you won't give us an answer.
Mr.
And so
Chairman.
the fact that you won't is bad, and the fact that you don't know is just as bad, because it's the one question the country kind of would like to know. What's really happening? When you say all these, pathways and things, and you're just border secure, and all the things you say, we kind of like to know what's really happened with the 2-point-something million people who've been released into the country since Joe Biden's been president. How many have went through the adjudication process and been removed?
So now
simple question.
So now I have 3 points. 1, we will provide the data to you.
God bless
2,
you.
we've been
waiting, but God bless you. I hope you do it this time.
2, we have been cooperating with this committee. We have made countless documents and people available to you. We have provided briefings.
Yeah, and here's what those, by the way, just so you know, I'll let you finish with your third point. Here's what those documents look like. Here's the one you sent to us on when you formed, it's policy and responsibilities in the department's information manipulation mission. That sounds scary enough, information manipulation mission, and it's all redacted. And this is the kind of stuff you gave us when we were trying to figure out who was responsible for putting together the Disinformation Governance Board, that I think my colleague, Mr. Johnson, was asking. And now we're asking a simple question about a number. And the fact that you won't give it to us or don't know it is, I think, a concern for all of us. I would say both sides, because the Democrats probably want to know too. They probably, that's something that should be so obvious, and you won't communicate to. Make your third point.
Mr. Chairman, we'll provide that information to every member.
Will it be like this, or will it be a real number? Will it be like that? Will it be a real number?
Mr. Chairman, the third point I would
Let me ask you real quick. Can you get that number to us like tomorrow? Or is you got to go back, and is it going to take weeks and months and haggling back and forth on all the letters we do? Congress writes letters to agencies and we haggle back and forth, all that dance we have to do? Or can you just get us the number?
Mr. Chairman, we'll provide that data to you as promptly as possible. My third point would be the most fundamental point of all when we speak of immigration. We are dealing with a fundamentally broken system. We have between 11 and 12 million.
I got 50 seconds, so I appreciate that. You've said that before, so I got that point. Don't mean to cut you off, but I got to get this. Now, in your testimony, you said you've arrested 14,000 smugglers. Seems like a big number to me. What happened to those guys?
Those individuals, Mr. Chairman, are, if the evidence so supports, prosecuted for smuggling.
You've referred them to DOJ. You've arrested them. You've given them over to DOJ. What's happened to them? Have they been indicted, taken to trial, found guilty? Are they in prison somewhere? What's the status? That is a huge number. 14,000 smugglers. I mean, God bless you for getting them, but I'd like to know what happened to them.
Very, very pleased to provide that data to you. Let me provide some examples.
You just told us a couple minutes ago you work closely with the FBI. We'd like that information too. That's important. Have you arrested any of them multiple times?
Congressman, I'll provide that information for you.
You think that's a possibility? Some of those smugglers you've arrested more than once?
Congressman, when I prosecuted immigration crimes in the 1990s, we saw individuals who had repeated violations of criminal laws of the United States and repeated removals from the United States. I've prosecuted.
My time has expired. But you think a smuggler, you catch someone smuggling people, smuggling drugs, that guy would be prosecuted, and you'd think you would, again, know that answer too. But we hope you get those answers. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
I thank the chairman. Secretary Mayorkas, on April 28th, 2022, I ask you, quote, will you testify under oath right now? Do we have operational control, yes or no? End quote. You responded with, quote, yes, we do, period, end quote. I then asked, we have operational control of the borders? You responded, quote, yes, we do, period, end quote. Followed up, I said, I read to you the definition of operational control. I actually held up this chart, operational control as defined under the Secure Fence Act. Put it up for plain reading, plain as day. I put up the second part of the same statute, which defines operational control. Means the prevention of all unlawful entries in the United States, including entries by terrorists, other unlawful aliens, instruments of terrorism, narcotics, and other contraband. I said to you, do you stand by in your testimony that we have operational control in light of this definition? You responded with, quote, I do, period, end quote. Earlier, you testified I didn't give you a chance to finish. Yet you specifically, when asked and held up a statute defining exactly what operational control meant under the Secure Fence Act, you said, quote, I do. I believe that was purposeful. I believe you want the American people to believe we have operational control of the border when we very clearly do not. Less than a month later, in Homeland Security, you testified, quote, under that strict definition, this country has never had operational control. This year, House Homeland Security, then Border Patrol Chief Raul Ortiz testified before the Homeland Committee that DHS did not have operational control of the border, either by the statutory definition or not. Now that is an honest answer. In the Senate Judiciary Committee, shortly thereafter, you testified with respect to the definition of operational control, I do not use the definition that appears in the Secure Fence Act. And the Secure Fence Act provides statutorily that operational control is defined as preventing all unlawful entries in the United States, and by that definition, no administration has ever had operational control. If you will recall when you testified here in front of me when I asked that question, when you very clearly stated, we do have operational control, when presented with the actual definition of operational control, you didn't hesitate, you said, I do, and you in fact then referred back and said, I believe that my predecessors would have said the same thing. I asked Chad Wolf that question in this room, and Chad said, well, no, we didn't use that framing to say we have operational control. We're striving to achieve operational control, but you didn't do that. You looked straight at the American people, straight at me, straight at every person on this committee, and said, we have operational control. Why?
Congressman, 2 points. One, you did not let me complete my answer. Two,
hold on. Or give me your second point. Go ahead.
Thank you. Two, the Secure Fence Act defines operational control as not a single individual crosses the border.
I'm aware. I read it, and I read it to you, and you read it, and in fact, you said, I do. You didn't hesitate. You didn't say, I do. I need to explain what I mean by I do. You said, I do, over and over again. And here's the problem with that. This is a pattern. Did you lie another time when you said on September 24th, 2021 at a press conference, quote, we know that those images painfully conjured up the worst elements of our nation's ongoing battle against systemic racism when responding to the alleged whipping incident by the Border Patrol agents who report to you. When in fact, on October 22nd, 2022, it was reported that 2.5 hours before that press conference, Marcia Espinoza, Assistant Secretary of DHS Public Affairs, emailed you and CC'd other DHS leadership, alerting you all that the photographer who took the images did not see any whipping occur, invalidating the initial claim. And it wasn't until May of this year that you corrected the record to say, well, let me just correct you right there because actually the investigation concluded the whipping did not occur. Don Rosenberg, in this very room, testified a few weeks ago that you lie. It is a perpetual pattern, and the fact is there are real people that are impacted by that. We have now had, since you testified, we have had something like 200 people a day dying from fentanyl deaths, which would amount to 90,000 people. I showed you before, when you were here, the lost voices of fentanyl, the hundreds, the thousands of Americans that continue to die, 90,000 since you came into this committee and lied to us saying we have operational control. I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentlelady from Indiana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief and yield my time since I'm kind of wasting my time here. I'll be honest with you. Secretary Mayorkas, do you take full responsibility for all decisions of action or inaction made at your agency? Do you personally take full responsibility
For
all of the decisions made at your agency?
I am the Secretary of the Department.
So it means yes.
I bear ultimate responsibility for the decisions made.
Yes, okay. So you mentioned earlier that in your definition, you have operational control of the border. Can you define what you mean by that?
What we mean, because under the Secure Fence Act, it means that not a single individual would cross the border. Under that definition, no administration has had operational control.
So what number do you have? 5 million, 10, if less than 5 or 10, or less than a couple 100,000 get away or more? I mean, what is your definition?
What we do, Congresswoman, is we
Do you have a number?
What we do is we look at the resources that we have available to us and ask ourselves, are we deploying those resources to achieve the most effective results for the American people? That is what we do, and we are hopeful, working with you and other members of this committee, to increase the funding for the Department of Homeland Security.
So far, we hear funding, but I've been at the border and you've been at the border too. How would you grade your job on a scale of 0 to 10? How would you grade yourself?
Congresswoman, I am immensely proud to work.
How would you grade yourself?
Congresswoman, I am immensely proud to work with the men and women of the Department of Homeland
Security.
Security.
No, yourself, your job, not all of the women. I'm sure there are a lot of great men and women in your department. How would you rate your job as a head of your agency?
It is the honor of my life.
From 0 to 10, so you cannot grade it. How would grade your preparedness to this committee meeting on scale from 0 to 10? We ask information, you all these promises, letter. I'm not wasting my time. I'm sorry, I don't want to use bad word, what you can do with all these letters, because we keep giving money and sending letter and you tell us BS back. So how would you rate yourself, your preparedness to this committee?
It is the honor of my lifetime to work with the men and
From
women.
scale 0 to 10, how would you say how prepared you came to this hearing?
I will repeat what I said.
So you're not answering any questions. You are not answering any Republican question. Is it something that your intent to not respond to any questions of Republicans, you came with that intent?
That is incorrect, Congresswoman.
Well, you're not answering any questions.
It is.
I mean, every time I hear you say, we will, we shall, yeah, I don't know. You don't know any numbers. You don't even know how many people you actually, you prosecuted, how many people you deported. You're nothing. How can you say you know how your department is run? As executive, you don't know these numbers?
Congresswoman, let me share with you.
Well, you haven't shared anything useful here.
Let me share
I'm
with you.
sorry to tell you, I'll yield to Chairman Jordan because I'm not going to be wasting your time with this charade and circus. You do not have an intent to do that, and it is a serious national security issue. This border and cartels are stronger. A lot of money NGOs are making who knows what, and probably a lot of corruption over there. And we have a national security crisis, and you sitting here and saying, looking at us with very smiley face, it's unacceptable. But I yield to Chairman Jordan.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Mr. Secretary, of the 140 illegal aliens you've encountered who are on the terrorist watch list, again, this is Mr. Ice's question earlier in the day. What is the status of those 140 individuals?
First of all, let me allow the record to reflect that I'm not smiling,
Okay.
nor have I smiled.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, will you repeat your question, please?
The 140 individuals who've been encountered on the border who are on the terrorist watch list, what's the status of those individuals?
I believe that question already has been posed, and I mentioned to the chairman that we will provide that data to you.
Have any of them been released, I guess is another way of framing that.
Mr. Chairman, let me say this. Individuals who pose a threat to public safety or national security are detained pending their removal.
Well, that's not what the Inspector General said. He said CBP released a migrant on the terrorist watch list and ICE faced information sharing challenges planning and conducting the arrest. This is from Mr. Kufari, the Inspector General, DHS. You disagree with Mr. Kufari?
We respectfully do.
You do? Okay. I would yield my time to the gentleman from Louisiana.
I've only got 25 seconds. I'll just say I don't have time for a question because you'll be elusive. But for the record, since we're stating things for the record, I've been in Congress 7 years. I think you're the most dishonest witness that has ever appeared before the Judiciary Committee. And I think I speak for a lot of my colleagues. This is such a frustrating exercise for us because our constituents want answers. They're tired of the open border. They're tired of people dying from fentanyl overdoses, and it's your fault. It's my time.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
No, there's no point of order in the middle of this. This is my opinion. I think it's shared by millions of American people.
Based on the
You show no shame.
Chairman, this is based on the standard that the chairman set out in previous hearings. Calling a witness dishonest is over the line that you drew at a previous hearing.
I'm not pulling the words down. That speaks for the American people.